This is the one thing that you cannot, by any means, screw up in your business. You can mess up on your content, you can mess up on your avatar, you can mess up on your website, you can mess up on your branding. However, if you mess up this one thing, all else goes to failure. My name's Sasha, and for almost a decade now, I've been helping thousands of new entrepreneurs build and grow profitable e-commerce businesses. And I'm joined today by my co-host, Hamen Bamba, who's spent over $30 million on ad spend and generated over $120 million for our clients.
So think about first, when you're launching a business, you're always thinking about what is the thing that I need to really master.
That's the challenge, because a lot of brands might sit there and they might look at their profit per product or profit per month, and then they look at their bank account and they're like, where is that money? We showed $40,000 of net profit, but I'm seeing the same flatline number for the last 3 months.
Absolutely. So the best way to navigate the market would be to have, I would say, enough margins or enough, let's say, arbitrage so that you can keep and maintain your performance and scale up.
Like we're at a 2x just through adding some upsells or just through adding some kind of like cart optimization that turns an average or ordinary kind of like profit margin and overall cash multiple into something very, very, very strong that can actually give you room to scale.
So on pricing, I know some owners are afraid of Amazon. Like, hey, the prices on Amazon are too low. People won't buy my products. What would you think about that?
If you solve a particular problem for a particular person and you really structure your brand around that particular avatar, it's like people go on to Amazon because they want the cheapest price.
Do you think we can compete with Amazon on pricing?
Hammond, what's up? Let's jump in. Tell me what you've seen before we dive into and reveal this very elusive, mysterious thing we're going to talk about. Why is it so important? And then we'll talk about what it is.
Absolutely. So think about first, when you're launching a business, you're always thinking about what is the thing that I need to really master. And I've seen businesses, they think about, well, it's my avatar, right? So I'll make sure that I get to the right person. I'll make sure the videos are aligned. That's kind of the thing. Or I've seen also people focus more on other things like, hey, we need to find something that's in demand, right? Something that people are buying. So most of the time, I think about like when you're launching, you think about what is my advantage? Is the product that's in demand, viral, trend, or is it, let's say, I have a good, let's say, pain that I'm trying to tackle? Like, is it the avatar? So the validation process, I've been obsessed about it. And as you know, we've been working with clients for a while, getting them to the 10K plus. And the goal was to identify what is the thing that will just make you win all the time. And I was looking at, and I mentioned this to you, I was looking at some brands that's just consistent, like years and years of optimization. They're never actually impacted by Andromeda updates, avatar, AI, whatever it is. They're just profitable. And I was like, must be something. And that's when I started looking at what is the thing that they all have in common. And that's when I was actually telling you about, well, this is thing just consistent for these brands. And then you actually told me you were working on this. I was like, surprising. So you're working on the same thing. We're looking at the same numbers. We're optimizing the same way. So I was surprised, like, hey, we're actually aligned on this.
It's it's no surprise, to be fair. I'd be surprised if we were not aligned on this and you were telling me that this is not important and I was telling you, I'd be like, okay, there's a problem here.
But think about, like, let's say the validations. Like, I always look at what are the validation for a person launching or looking to get into a market. So you're looking at essentially an exchange, right? So for example, you're selling something. So we have an arbitrage. It's always the case, by the way, for any business out there. So you're looking to sell something for a price and it's costing you something. The difference is your profit. So most of the time I think about how can we make sure that we're doing a fair exchange? A lot of businesses, they run ads at, let's say, unprofitable ROAS. Essentially, they don't know how to trade. They pay Meta 100 and then they make 80, 0 point, let's say something ROAS, and like, oh, I'm not making money. I'm like, you just don't know how to trade. It's not, again, a good trade if you're at the deficit. So that's when I started looking at this exchange. We need to really master it.
And it's very, very important what you mentioned there, because the challenging part of looking at, for example, like profit as a measurement stick, it doesn't actually give you indication into what your bank account will look like. That's the challenge, because a lot of brands might sit there and they might look at their profit per product or profit per month, and then they look at their bank account and they're like, where is that money? I can't. We showed $40,000 of net profit, but I'm seeing the same flatline number for the last 3 months. And so the reason that that happens is because of exactly what we discussed earlier in terms of this elusive, mysterious number. Look at it from whichever lens you want to, whether it's gross profit, or you look at it through the lens of like that CAC to gross profit lifetime value, ultimately, from what we both agreed on before, is the amount of money left over after you have taken care of like your product cost. Like that's the biggest kind of delta that gives you so much room to fail, to mess up, to figure it out, to run ads blindfolded and I'm not sure, throw content onto Meta and hope that something works. It's like it gives you so much more room as like a buffer, as a cushion, so to speak, to be able to actually make those mistakes and still come out profitable. Talk to me about what you've seen in terms of margins that I guess are optimizing. Like what's a good margin from what you've seen? Obviously, the more the better, obviously, but it's like, talk to me about some of the brands that you've seen, why they've been successful and what the margins kind of look like.
Absolutely. So again, think about what you just mentioned. Like you sell something for a price and then the difference is your profit. So when I was looking at those brands, keep in mind that Meta is, again, it's an auction. So the number would fluctuate. So the best way to navigate the market would be to have, I would say, enough margins or enough, let's say, arbitrage that you can keep and maintain your performance and scale up. So when I looked at the business, I was like, CPA went from 80 to 90, still profitable. Went from 90 to 110 in, let's say, very competitive time, still profitable. And then dropped to 50, we're still profitable. So I've seen this fluctuation in CPAs, but the business was always profitable. And I was looking at, well, what is the thing? I know the margin, I know the break even is good, but then I looked at, if I take this break even ROAS, which again, I know that people would optimize sometimes around break even, myself included. A low break even is a good for any person thinking about what is break even. Break even is where, if you look at, let's say, break even return on ad spend, it's a dollar amount that you get back, let's say, where we start to be profitable. So let's say you're spending $1, you make your $1 in sales, and your break even is 1, then essentially after anything above 1, you're profitable. If you make 1.12, you're a little bit profitable. If you spend a dollar and you make 0.9, then you're unprofitable. So it's kind of the level where we start profiting. So I was looking at that all the time as a metric to validate the margin. Like, hey, if we have a good break even, then we should be good. But then I looked at, well, if I have a low ticket item, then that arbitrage, even if it's a good break even, I might actually struggle to maintain profit because the moment Meta fluctuate $5, I'm losing money. And that's not even like factored in the break even. So I was like, it's more than the just break even return on ad spend. There's a dollar amount associated. And that's when I started looking at, well, there is not just a ratio, but also a dollar amount. I'm actually curious about your view on ratios versus dollar amount, because I feel like people would look at break even ROAS, like what's the magical number? I look at it myself, but I think about, well, you need also margins, like you need dollars, like value there that you can like convert.
I completely agree. The way that, and it's actually funny you say that because I literally just did this training, and I'm just going to share my screen because it's completely relevant to what we're discussing right here. And so the way that I like to look at it from a gross profit perspective is if we look at this document here. So the thing you want to optimize for is gross profit dollars. That's the key thing, because as an example, I've got this. For those that might be listening in here, probably check this out on YouTube and you can see the actual calculator that I've developed here. What we've got as this product D category, it looks very good. Like from the indication at the bottom, my ratio from CAC to gross profit lifetime value is like 3, meaning every dollar I spend on that thing, I get $3 of like gross profit dollars back. But the way that I've structured this, because this is probably some like real products, even similar products to those that actually we sell, it's like $29 product. Now I'm making the assumption that there aren't any acquisition costs, because I'm like, well, this is a bundle or a back end upsell type product that I'm going to sell, not a front end. So I'm like, we'll remove all the acquisition costs from the margin. We'll assume that we have, the packaging costs and manufacturing costs in terms of what it actually costs to manufacture the good, which is $3, 10%. So it's like very good. We're 90% gross profit in terms of the product. Then we've got our freight to get the unit here from China to Australia. That's $4 out of 29, meaning now we're at about like 80% gross profit. And then if we look down here at the totals, we've got like, the total COGS, and then we've got the total costs. But the issue here is, despite being 76% gross profit after all things, you're still only left with $22. And so it's like, you might sit there and be like, wow, 76% gross profit. This is fantastic. But it's like, you look at this and you're like, well, it's only $20.
Yes, it's not much.
And then If something went wrong, like you mentioned, we have a little bit of ad fluctuation. We have, I'm not sure, some creatives that fatigue. We have something go wrong. More media gets pushed into the market, Black Friday, Cyber Monday. All of a sudden, me sitting there and thinking my gross profit of 76% is fantastic, I double my acquisition cost because of platform changes or creative fatigue. And all of a sudden I have no margin left over whatsoever. And so I think it needs to be, you need to optimize for the products that have the highest gross profit dollars. And that's essentially like, they are the products that have, I like to think about it like almost like animals. So if you think like a hunter goes out there and they might like, hunt rabbits as an example. Like you need to, spear a whole bunch of rabbits to feed the tribe. You know what I mean? It's like ideally, and then there might be like, deer, and then there might be like a bison, like a big freaking buffalo. Like you want to get the buffaloes. You know what I mean? Like you need the buffaloes with all of that material, because it's like the rabbits aren't going to feed your tribe very long. There's a lot of bones there, but it's like if you can get onto those products in your category, in your SKU mix that have the highest gross profit dollars, they will sustain. If you look in this column here in product E, it's like, hypothetically speaking, if we have a $400 product, and then my acquisition costs go from, $20 to even say, $100, I can still make sense of this. You know what I mean? I can still make sense of like massive fluctuations in my margin and still have $220 left over after everything.
Yes. And that's the biggest delta. Like the arbitrage here would be so good because you can actually make money.
That's exactly. And so I think the thing is, I think for most founders, understanding this from the lens of you must look beyond quote unquote profit. And that's the biggest challenge. And so sometimes I know myself personally, I used to get stuck up in and kind of like I used to get very caught in the thinking that, well, the product's profitable, or we're quote unquote we're making profit. But I'm like, where is the profit? And so I think if you start to think through that lens of like, all right, so I spent, for example, all my marketing costs, and then I spent my fulfillment costs for the acquisition of one customer to acquire and to fulfill. After that, I'm still going to have to run the business, so I need some extra margin. But assuming my business runs on nothing, I have no subscriptions, it's just literally just a zero cost basis business, and all I was doing was taking the acquisition of ads and then taking the fulfillment via COGS, I would want to have, for every dollar I spend, I would want to have as many dollars left over as possible to continue stuffing back in that machine. You know what I mean? And so if you optimize for that, and it's really an extension of what you mentioned around gross profit, if you can optimize for a gross profit margin, 80%, 90%, whatever that dollar, that margin looks like, but then focus obsessively on like, what is the value of those dollars available? And that's what we've seen with some of our clients that are quietly crushing it with expensive products that are $200, $300 products, but then they actually cost, quite a small amount to manufacture. And then you combine that with like very strong ad performance, and you've got this insane cash machine where it's like the founders are filling up their bank accounts with tens of thousands of dollars in a month. And you're like, I could almost not spend the money fast enough. And that's really the goal,
Yes, and I feel like this is the thing. Like if you look at your number that you shared, you have the one with the $50 and then the $400. So the cost of acquisition was like about 54, if I remember well. And then you have the price at 400. That's like a 7-8x multiple. So for me, the view would be just for a person that's thinking, well, I'm not sure about like how to track this. Like how can I get this information and kind of use it? Think about if it costs you $10, try to sell it for $80. That's how much you have like in terms of that multiple there, that ratio. The businesses that I was talking about, I analyzed them very deeply. They have a 10x multiple. So every time something is, let's say, costing them in terms of cost of goods plus shipping $20, they sell it for $200. That's how they position themselves. So they have enough room to do that arbitrage. And actually, just one thing that I just remember when you were talking about this, 6 years ago, I had a coaching session that cost me about, I think, $5,000, give or take. And I was coming in the session. It's with a media buyer that's very advanced, managed like 9-figure in ad spend. And I was coming in and I was really looking to learn about cost cap. I was very excited about it. And I come in and I, joined this program that I was so excited about. I paid him for the coaching. He come to the call and was like, this is my ad account. This is what I'm looking at. He's like, that doesn't really matter. I was like, why? He was like, because, we need to look at your margins. Like what's the dollar you're generating back from this ad spend that you're sharing with me? He was like, I know you know how to run the ads. And I'm like, okay. He was like, focus on the other thing, like the thing that's not in the ad account, like the dollars spent versus return. And I know you do this a lot when you look at, you almost like program scenarios. And I see you do this many times, but I feel like people don't do this. They focus too much on the ad account. They ignore about that other thing that generate the sales.
And it's crazy, like just to flick back to this, because I've been playing around with this in a whole bunch of different like means, and it's like, even if, say for example, because I was kind of like modeling this out before, and say for example, our product E here was like $200, and then we were selling, I'm not sure, let's just say like hypothetically speaking, 25% acquisition cost. We've got $58 in total to acquire a customer. All the other costs are kind of like, manufacturing, let's say, for example, that's around 20%. Maybe we call that around about that margin. Packaging, shipping. This is probably like a pretty typical product for a lot of clients. You know what I mean? $200, $60 for acquiring the customer. That's about 30%. Pretty typical. Manufacturing cost, you're looking at $40. So that's about like 20%. That's quite good. And then you've got your total cost being like 70 and 45, and then totaling out at like 117 with 83 in total left over after all things. And it's like, well, you could argue that that's good, yes. But then it's like, the cool thing here is it also, let's just hypothetically say I go and take this upsell or this back end product that has a $3, COGS, and I add it into here for like 33, and then I add this, 29 into the top here. It's like it makes pretty substantial impact on these numbers very quickly. And then say, for example, you pull on that kind of like, I don't know, media buying lever, and you bring your acquisition costs, say, down to, 40. Things very quickly turn around. And so I think it's like, once you start to measure via the right number and then you optimize for that, the changes that you can make into your business, and this is actually very similar to what we discussed with Asman recently. So if you recall, we were talking about his company selling the natural kind of like testosterone increasing supplements, right? And it was kind of like, sell more at that point of sale, because it's like, once the customer's already decided to buy, you don't want to just sell once to them, because you've already expended that money towards acquisition. And it's like, how can we turn that, I don't know, $115 average order into $215? You know what I mean? And it's like, let's just hypothetically say, for example, right at that point of sale, we sold, I don't know, 2 times the amount of widgets right here, and this turned into like 429 as an example, and then we doubled the manufacturing to like 66. Like, we're at a 2x just through adding some upsells, or just through adding some kind of like cart optimization that turns an average or ordinary kind of like profit margin and overall cash multiple into something very, very, very strong that can actually give you room to scale. So I think it's one of those things that if you're listening to this and you're feeling like, oh my goodness, like I've missed this, I don't know if my business is very profitable, and maybe it's not very profitable, but it's like, there are ways that you can optimize and change this.
Absolutely. And think about, again, we mentioned this, you can mess like the demand. You're just going to sell less. You can mess like the avatar. You're going to have to find a new angle. But if you miss the margins, that's very tough to adjust. Like this one thing, if you play well with it, you're going to be able to do that fair exchange. Otherwise, you're going to just be losing money.
What do you think? Like, let's say, Hammond, people listening right now, they might have a little bit of fear and a little bit of terror around like, oh my God, my margins are nowhere near good enough. No wonder my bank account is going down and not going up. Despite my business growing, it's kind of flatlining in terms of actually the amount that I'm getting paid. What do you think your view is on that? How do you think people can remedy the situation? Like, what do you think?
Okay, so first thing, if you need to think about, well, is your price like a good price? That's the first thing you can analyze. Like, am I actually pricing properly? You can look at that first. But if you don't want to mess your price, you're already running ads and you don't want to impact your business, you could do exactly what you just shared here with the upsells. You can start looking at, well, we can do pre-purchase, post-purchase, the volume. Like, I'll probably focus on something in the cart level. That's the most impactful one, like not the post-purchase, the one what they see in the landing page, buy 1, buy 2, give more incentive for the second and the third. With Black Friday coming, that's an easy push for an AOV. It's direct impact. And by the way, I've seen clients really move their AOV with just that. Particularly, I think even Asman, I think he moved his AOV after our call, like the podcast session, just by doing that structure that we mentioned. So the first thing would be focusing on the upsells pre-purchase. They have the biggest impact. So that's going to be just you do this new upsell to get your AOV higher. The easiest path, if you don't want to do that, would be to just increase your price. That's going to be another option. But you need to also back it up. Now, one thing that I noticed that happened to one of my clients in the past, and they actually had a terrible period when they launched, like they were not profitable. And they're like, hey, it just doesn't work. And I was like, let's increase the price. So we increased the price, we made the page more luxurious, and we didn't make a lot of money. I was like, okay, we have a problem here. So things are not aligned. The moment we started just lowering a little bit the price, but with that luxury feel, we got to that sweet spot where although it's a higher price, I was not necessarily optimizing around it. It just worked right away. And I was able to scale. So my view on this would be you need to probably find what is the fair price in the market with your brand feel. Because if your brand is a little bit cheaper, you can't necessarily position a high price. So I'll start looking at how can I make my brand a little bit more premium to essentially price higher. That's probably a direction.
Well, and I think I agree completely with that. Pricing higher, if possible, definitely. So I look at it through the lens of there's really two main levers that you can pull on to influence or make impact on. Say, for example, you're in a situation, you're selling a product that's $100 and your margin in terms of just what you've actually allocated towards manufacturing is like $40. And you've got $60 left over for you to acquire a customer and then have some cash at bank. And you're sitting here and you're like, wow, once I've done that, once I've spent the product and then I've also acquired the customer, I've only got $30 left as an example, right? Then what you want to do, I see the two main levers being get the arbitrage on media down as much as possible. So if it's in your wheelhouse and it's almost like if you can do it, you must do it. Content machine. You must become a content machine in terms of how quickly you're producing and creating very, very, very strong, founder-led, authentic, engaging, fun content that people can watch. And you do it to the degree of 50 pieces per week where you're just boom, and it's hook after hook after hook after hook. If you want to get a really good test on this, I love what the guys at True Classic do in terms of this. I don't know if you've seen their content. They have there's one main body that their entire ad count uses. It's insane, except for obviously static ads. All their video ads, they use one body. And then every ad, there's thousands of ads in their library. There must be hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them that have short 3-second hook with a big call to action that just gets driven back into the same exact body.
I think you should also define, because some audience probably don't know even what you're talking about in terms of body. So maybe right. What do you mean by body? Because otherwise they might be confusing it with
body. Else. So I define body as what you get when you go to the gym for a long time and you get really jacked.
Hey.
And you, no, I'm joking. So the hook obviously means the first 3 seconds of the ad. That's where you get the attention, you get the click, you get the eyeballs. Post 3 seconds onwards, that's really where the ad does the selling. You know what I mean? That's where it's perhaps taking people on a story. It's giving credibility. It's influencing through maybe different aspects of unique mechanisms, unique features and benefits. And then the end of it is obviously a call to action that drives the click or takes them through the next step. So experimenting with, hook development. If you're in that position right now where you're geez, my gross profit's not that good. Number one, you've got to become a content machine, meaning hooks stacked into the rest of the ad, meaning bodies, to make sure you're taking care of as much as you can as possible that kind of media arbitrage. Because if you've got ordinary products and on top of that, you're horrible at content, and then you're saying, geez, content's not my thing. Well, it's kind of I hope that money isn't your thing.
Okay. But I'm curious about something here, just in terms of your view on this, because you mentioned body, hook, and let's say if I was to think about your ad as let's say something that's walking in the market, would you say that the hook is kind of the face? It's how you talk to people. It's just that ability to convert essentially. It's the most important part, and then the body is what they look at in terms of the angle. It's almost the rest, what they're wearing. How would you position the impact of the hook, and why is it so powerful?
This is interesting. This is a strange as hell analogy, but it's kind of just come to my mind. So there was a friend of mine, and he used to do what's it called, dating, is it game or something like that? And he used to do that stuff where he'd go to the nightclubs and he'd try and pick up girls. And I was like, dude, this is really lame. I can't believe you do this stuff. And he was explaining it to me to make himself feel a little bit less weird, right? And so what he was saying is apparently there's this strategy that they used in that whole philosophy whereby I think they call it like peacocking, where it's like the guy might wear like something really like bold and audacious and very, very bright and some strange blazer with a weird like peacock feather or all this crazy stuff or like some strange hat. And it's like the whole purpose of that is to get attention. You know what I mean? It's not to go to the nightclub to look like the best, but it's just
so you would say
oh
that
God,
dating
why are you wearing?
so you can actually use the dating kind of structure to appeal to people, like control the market.
I don't know. I think so. So it's kind of like, what's the goal of wearing some weird, flamboyant, over the top outfit to get people to be like, hey, why are you wearing that? And then from there you go, oh, well, look, it's actually this thing. It was my grandmother's. I just happened to put it on. I really liked it. And then you're into the conversation. You know what I mean? And so it's like the way that I would see it is like hypothetically speaking, it's like if you were going to the club every time and then you found one blazer that seemed to just absolute every single time, you would go to the club every time and you'd probably wear the same blazer.
Sorry. So you're actually using this like way to appeal, like in terms of just the market, like you're coming in, this is what's working, people are looking at you, then you can start kind of that, this is my product.
That's exactly right. So it's like the hook is that the hook is what gets the attention and grabs that kind of eyeball, akin to that horrible analogy of, I don't know, going to the club and trying to pick up girls. It's like, what's going to get people to look at you? And then from there, once they're looking, you can kind of, I don't know, persuade with conversation and say, hey, you know, I'm a regular guy. I'm not really this weird all the time. I just wore this jacket today because I wanted to get your attention, whatever that might look like, you know?
Got you. I actually believe this is like it's really a good analogy in terms of using the market, because I feel like also when I analyze it, some people are they just take one product and they think they can make it with one product, and let's say it doesn't work, and they just believing that that's the one. Like they have like almost like, I think, the dating wall image, like the one-nighters. It's like, hey, this thing will work, and they just keep doing it. They don't look at anything else. So I feel like actually those analogies are pretty powerful, particularly in terms of appeal and kind of commit. Like if you look at a market where I'll just do this one ad, I'm not going to change, you're probably not going to get anywhere. If you look at, well, I need to get attraction, bringing more people, then this example is actually pretty solid. So you need to do weird ads. And I think this is actually why they mentioned like you should be okay being embarrassed online.
It very much is. It very much. I think people care way too much about like, I don't know, online image, what they're going to think, being cringy, and it's like, what? Who cares? You know what I mean? A lot of the time, the content that's performed the best in any of my ads or media or any of the brands that I've ever run, it's like you look at that stuff and you're like, I don't know if it's that good. Geez, and you look at it and you're like, oh my God, that is printing.
Yes, that's that thing. But that's my belief. Like the thing that limits a person probably is that fear of embarrassment. And I think that's a big problem. And if you look at people making money, sometimes they do weird things. And I'm like, hey, there are some people that are doing weird content and they just make so much money. And they're kind of winning. Like they're actually winning pretty much. But the difference is they're doing the thing that others are not willing to do. So back to the content, really playing on you kind of in that team of just bringing more attention. So coming in, doing weird stuff essentially to get good hooks.
Yeah, doing weird stuff. So it's like, I think it's like, if you're in a situation, like I mentioned, where your gross profit is not where it needs to be, you have to, first things first, solve as much as you can that media problem. And it's like, do it in a level or do it in a way where it's like, you're not thinking of it in your mind around like, I'm going to do this once and for all. Horrible. It's like, I am going to become so damn good at this particular skill set because once I get so damn good in perpetuity from now until forever, it is going to be probably one of the most powerful skills that's going to produce insanely high cash in my business. Like that's the mindset that you look through, and that has you not trying like, you know, once per week or like, what am I going to create today? It's like, are you trying to win the game or not? That's kind of the question. And then so once you've optimized some of your content, I think it becomes a very important game to then look at like, how can you sell your customers more stuff? I was at a workshop on the weekend and a close friend of mine, he mentioned to me, he's like, my business has a lifetime value of $245,000. And I was like, whoa. He's like, on average, people pay for between 5 and 6 years. And I was like, that's quite good.
Mm-hmm. So
you know what I mean? And so
you
it's
can
like,
afford pretty much like, this is like, if you know what like if we look at it from a 5-year perspective, you can afford to spend to get customers. So that's like a massive
I can spend $100,000 to get a customer and still be like, you know what I mean? Like wildly profitable.
So it's very hard then to just not get customers, essentially.
Precisely. If you've taken care of that content game and you're like, we've really dialed that in, I think the next step then becomes like, and this is one thing that we're really obsessing on a lot. I know that Ben and Bianca from that Blank company, they do a very good job at this. How could you sell? In fact, I actually, what's it called? This is a great example here. I'll share my screen. I saw this and I thought this was just fantastic. So I actually purchased some of these products the other day because I wanted to. I'm in a stage right now where I'm kind of like improving my sleep a lot. And I saw a lot of good people talking about this like mouth tape, nose tape. I'm talking about Ben and Bianca. They sell a similar product specifically for females. Now I went to this site and then I looked at, let's have a look at, where are we here? Packs. Now I looked at this pack and they've done a very good job here. So you look at like one time and like if I was the brand founder doing this, like I'd be like, okay, cool. People, how many freaking mouth tapes and nose tapes are people going to buy? You know, it's like, how many of these things do I want to have in my house? But it's like I probably wouldn't buy one pack, two. Psychologically, that's what I would think as a consumer, right? And so naturally, I imagine a lot of people probably come in and they want to test it or try it. And so you come in here and you pick whichever ones you want. And you look at the selection here in terms of, most popular, you've got the 3-month supply, right? And the difference here is just profound. So it's like one-time purchase is 222, subscribe and save, right, is 150. So it's like dramatic $70 savings. You take that up to the 6-month supply. God forbid you wanted, 6 months worth of freaking tape in your house. The one-time purchase, 440 versus 260. So it's like number one,
stupid not actually going with the subscribe and save because you can cancel anytime, right? It's like dumb.
Cancel anytime, precisely. But the thing is, I'm sure, I don't know if they have or they haven't, but it's like, I don't know about you, but it's like I only ever audit and look at. I look at my subscriptions every single month on personal and business, but I'm like, most people, they buy this thing once because they're saving hundreds of dollars in this particular instance, and then it wouldn't be until they've got rebilled again in 2 months 6 months time that they've completely forgotten about it, that they're like, oh, boom. So they've just taken what was going to be this 1 month try for $72 potentially. And then if you subscribe and save and they buy once and then buy again, that's $500. You know what I mean? It's like that, assuming that they at least bill twice the card. You know what I mean? It's like that right there on a product that I look at and I'm like, God, like that's a very much a single use, a one time. You'd only buy a small amount, but they've done it in a way where it's like, boom, boom, capturing these two purchases, assuming people only purchase twice, and then turn an average order value from $70, which is almost impossible to scale on meta ads, into something that is like $500 with very good margins because the acquisition's the same and you just ship the product one time. Like, incredible. So it's like this then becomes the game in my view.
Yeah, and keep in mind that here, if you look at this situation that you just shared, like I can bet everything that the cost of goods is super low, and that there's no probably the difference between the like 1 month, 6 months, it's going to be like $10 or something, and they just position it as like a higher kind of. I'm very confident on that element because this is a very small product, so they're not going to be paying a premium to get more, I would say, of it to ship to one customer.
Not just that, but the shipping is probably close to zero, because it comes in an envelope that's this big. So it's like your shipping is probably $4. Your COGS are probably $10. Like, it's like very, very, very strong product. Obviously, it is becoming more and more of a competitive market, but I thought this was just genius because when I purchased it, I went in there from, looking at like a single time, maybe I'll just try 30 days worth. And then I came out buying 3 months worth. And I'm like, hold on a second, how the hell did that happen? You know what I mean? And then I was like, I'd rather not pay 222. I'd rather just subscribe for 150. That makes a lot more sense. You know what I mean? It's just like, these are the things that you need to do in your business when you start to solve that content problem first. You've got good, strong volume. And this is what we talk about, Hammond, you and I, all the time. Solve your CPC, then solve your conversion rate, then solve your average order value. And it's like, these things are just like the bread and butter of everything that you do consistently in your e-commerce business to ratchet up that profit and ultimately give you more gross profit dollars back on every single customer's order.
Yes, absolutely. And keep in mind that this adjustment here is a small adjustment, but it could change entirely the business. Like, you're just adding those options there. People are buying more, say 30, 40%. That changes the business. Like, you can really move from losing money or break even to very profitable just with this adjustment, not changing anything in your conversion rate or even anything in the ad account. It can be as simple as that.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And so I guess for people listening, Hammond, like let's hypothetically say we've kind of given some strategy for those that are listening and they maybe have realized that their product isn't profitable enough. Add hooks, bodies, obsess on that, then switch into lifetime value extension. Now, if people are in a position where they're maybe just starting out and they haven't yet selected their product and they're kind of thinking about those things, what's your view on that margin? You mentioned before, like $10 and sell for 80. Talk to me about what you think the best, healthiest margin is.
So like we talked about this, like the more you have, the better it is. So if you tell me this, I'm thinking about, well, just maximize it. But otherwise, I would say, look at like the arbitrage we're doing. How much money are you going to be like playing with when you monetize this acquisition? That's the first thing I think about. I would say, we need a break even of like 1.5 or below. That's going to be a very good break even. But I would add to that, we need to have a margin of $100 plus per acquisition minimum. Those are kind of like the basic levels to start with. But if you want to really optimize, you want to 8 to 10x the cost of goods on top of this. So if you tell me that we're getting this for 40, we should look at selling it for 400. So that's my view. If you do this, you have enough. And if you can't sell it for that price, make the brand more premium. Position the like a differentiation that makes sense.
And the thing is to that, people will be sitting there and saying, that sounds crazy. How am I supposed to find a product that cheap and sell it for that expensive? And that is exactly why so many people in e-commerce don't make money, because it's hard. Because it's hard, you know what I mean? To find a product that fits that criteria that you can really get that kind of multiple out of, it's supposed to be challenging, you know what I mean? And that's your job as a founder, to really spend time on that and obsess on that so you can maximize the amount of value for your company. And it's like, the thing about this is like, having a really profitable business doesn't mean you just get to go to more trips to Bora Bora or I don't know, buy more espresso martinis. It's like you get to be able to build a business with healthy cash flow margins that allows you to reinvest in products, to build epic customer loyalty. Like you can really do more stuff in your business as opposed to just always being on the constant hamster wheel of most people's businesses. So it's a very, very worthwhile metric you're obsessing on.
Absolutely. And think about even like I had like a call with a client, I think it was like a week ago, where she was an Amazon seller in the past. So she was actually selling on Amazon. And I remember getting into the call and she's sharing with me this product that she's selling, and she used to sell it on Amazon with really low margins. Acquisition cost, like this is a cost of goods, I think it was like 10 or something, and she's selling it for 30. Like that's super low. Like how are you actually even running ads? And I was like, this is not probably the direction to scale. And then she was like, but it's on Amazon for 30. Then we pulled one of my clients and I like one of our clients, and I shared the product on Amazon, the same product that we're selling for 150. It's on Amazon for $15, the same product. And we're scaling, we're doing $500,000 a month. So I was like, wow, this is an indication. You need to find a way to advertise properly your product, because otherwise, well, you're going to end up with that mentality. I can't sell it for more just because it's on Amazon for 30. I actually think that Amazon, you can take the price and multiply by 3. I'm actually curious about your view on this. Like, do you think we can compete with Amazon on pricing?
Well, I mean, you can't compete with Amazon on Amazon. That's for sure.
But on pricing, particularly, let's say pricing wise, because some brand, like I know some owners, they just are afraid of Amazon. Like, hey, the prices on Amazon are too low. People won't buy my products. And they're like, we just can't do this because it's on Amazon.
Of course.
20. What would you think about that?
I mean, I think it's similar to what you said. It's like, and this is everything that Ecom Capital is designed around. Is like, if you solve a particular problem for a particular person and you really structure your brand around that particular avatar, it's like people go on to Amazon because they want the cheapest price. That is why the platform has been designed. Like Jeff Bezos' philosophy is like, we want to make the most customer-centric platform, meaning we want the cheapest prices. His whole ethos is, how do we get the cheapest possible products in front of customers in the shortest amount of time? And that, in terms of like, if you think about what that does to a business, that's very counterintuitive to a company making money, except for Amazon. Amazon makes a lot of money, but all the companies that are on Amazon, they get squeezed like crazy. You know what I mean? So it's like, I think you can definitely outperform Amazon or take products from Amazon and win with them. But it's like you need to do it in a way that speaks to and caters to a particular market or a particular avatar, and does it in a way where it's like they feel like this is just for them. Because I don't know about you, but every time I go on Amazon, you sift through hundreds of products. They all start to look the same. The only thing you're shopping by is price. And at the end of the day, there's a little bit of a weird kind of distrust with like, oh man, is that good or is that good? Is that, I can't really tell. I'm not too sure. Like you're not too sure. Whereas if you jump onto a website or a brand that's built and you feel like you're like, oh my goodness, it's as if this is made for me. The trust is there, that the testimonies look like people just like you. The language is talking about problems that you have in your head. The offer really communicates value to you right now in your stage of your life. It's like, I'm going to be like, oh my goodness, it's as if this brand is made for me. I'm going to pay 2 to 3 times more because the trust factor is there. So it's like, I think brands will always prevail, especially from a price point perspective, only if they're able to communicate value in a very specific niched avatar way that is able to, again, compete against what might be big Amazon.
Absolutely. And I think that dropshipping model is actually the problem in terms of like, if you just dropshipping, you're going to have this issue with pricing because you're kind of coming in and trying to just dropship to compete with Amazon essentially, and you can't win because Amazon is faster. The moment the trend is done, then you kind of have to find another product, and that's why this cycle is draining for some brands. Versus when you're branding and you're positioning a mission and kind of a vision, and people are joining, and it's really unique for a specific person, they're going to buy from you. Like think about if you create a product just for Uber drivers, you just create a brand around that. They go to Amazon, they're not going to buy those products because they don't see the Uber like this is for me. And if they see that this is like a posture corrector, pretty much drop shit everywhere. But if I was to do the Uber version, make it for Uber driver, they're gonna come in and buy it because like, hey, this is like our product. So that's kind of my view on it.
Absolutely, very, very good. Let's wrap it there. This has been a very dense conversation. Look, if you want to get a copy, I just recently put together a calculator, a sheet that, in fact, the sheet that we just demonstrated in this video. If you want to get a copy of that, you can send us an email just at support@ecomcapital.com. We can give you some access to some of the tools that we discussed inside of this podcast. Probably be a great place to start for you if you're looking to start to understand the product economics, the profit economics that you really want to see within your business. Hammond, as always, my friend, a great episode, and super excited to see what we're going to unpack. We've got some great case studies and some things coming up that I think a lot of people are going to be very excited about.
Amazing. Looking forward to the next one.
Fantastic. Bye for now.